Welcome back. The Trump administration is now targeting the Smithsonian Institution, calling its leaders radical activists and warning President Trump may be prepared to install his own team. The attacks coming in a report released by the White House Domestic Policy Council on Independence Day, saying the Smithsonian Institution and the National Museum of American History in particular, under its current leadership and current interpretive ideology, cannot be trusted to tell America's story honestly and in a way that is inspiring, unifying, and worthy of our great republic. The Smithsonian pushing back, saying it served, the U.S. with nonpartisan and independent scholarship for more than 180 years. And in an exclusive interview with Kristen Welker, recorded before the release of that report, Lonnie Bunch, the secretary of the Smithsonian, touted the lack of partisanship in his organization.
I think the Smithsonian, in some ways, is the glue that helps hold a nation together, right? You look at who visits the Smithsonian, everybody. Red states, blue states, whatever your politics, you come to the Smithsonian. Why? Because you want to understand who you are, right? It's about celebrating, but also understanding. And in some ways, what I think the country could use, what the Smithsonian provides is, we spend, as many Americans, we look for simple answers to complex questions. The Smithsonian gives you ambiguity. It helps you understand complexity, nuance, subtlety, debate. And I think that that's a major contribution. If you could help people feel comfortable with ambiguity, then you could help a nation move forward.
I'm joined now by presidential historian Douglas Brinkley. Douglas, I want to get your reaction to the White House's assessment of the Smithsonian's leadership and what potential perils could pop up if President Trump attempts to install his own leadership team.
Well, the White House is going after Lonnie Bunch, who, in my estimation, has done an amazing job of explaining the multicultural dynamics of America. Anybody who goes to Smithsonian will feel American exceptionalism writ large, whether it's the history of the railroads or Neil Armstrong going on the moon. But what Trump is trying to do is talk about its ideological capture, that the Smithsonian is really working on the other side with Democrats and liberals. And instead, he'd like to see the museum whitewashed, get rid of the sense of the plight of indigenous people. Don't talk about Andrew Jackson's Trail of Tears. Don't talk about slavery much. Talk about the emancipation of slaves a lot, but not slavery. And so it's part of the Trump White House's attack on what they call woke culture. The Smithsonian's tried to play above board, working with the White House, but this report tells you a war is looming, and that war will be Trump issuing an executive order yet again of some kind to get rid of leadership at this esteemed national institution.
Mm-hmm. President Trump also has now taken to calling Democrats godless communists. I want to play a little more of what the president said about communism during his 4th of July address on the National Mall. Take a listen.
America will never be a communist country. Won't happen. Communism is a loser, and it always will be. The communist system is the opposite of the American system, and the communist system has never worked. Our warriors did not fight communism on battlefields across the world, only to have that menace rear its ugly head right back here in America. We're not going to let it happen. We like to stop a threat like that immediately and before it begins. It's like a cancer. You got to cut it out. You got to cut it out fast.
This isn't the first time we've seen communism used as a political cudgel. What are the potential long-term dangers, though, of vilifying your political opponents with this kind of rhetoric?
Well, Donald Trump's trying to create a 1950s style Joe McCarthy Red Scare on steroids. After all, McCarthy was only a senator from Wisconsin, and yet he did a lot of damage to people's lives and careers by innuendo and false accusations and witch hunts. Now you're seeing President Trump, who has the power of the bully pulpit of the White House, trying to reverb McCarthyism and making it as a central premise for what he's trying to do with his legislative act coming up, Save America Act, and the midterm elections coming. If you're on the left, you're a communist. And, he's been an effective labeler of people like the squad that are progressives. Now he's going to call Bernie Sanders, AOC, Mandami, not progressives, but communist. And that's the GOP playbook in the coming months. And Trump simply launched it at a couple of speeches over the 4th of July weekend.
And then before you go, the Supreme Court has granted the executive branch sweeping new authority, not only to this president, but it is effectively be for future presidents. How much do you think the power will change the office of the president going forward?
Well, it's going to change it mightily and already has. I mean, we are living in the age of maximalism and presidential power. Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution is quite vague about what is presidential power beyond certain things like being a head of the Armed Forces Commander-in-Chief and a few things. But, we've seen a ever-growing larger presidency, particularly FDR issued 3,000 executive orders during the Great Depression and World War II. Trump likes the EO. You sign it, and it makes the news that night. And you get all of this, media coverage around the world. But alas, things get booted to the courts. It might be slow, but a year later, many of Trump's executive orders are deemed illegal. But he doesn't care about building a legislative record as much as he does using EOs to stay front and center of the TV cameras and public discourse everywhere.
Yeah, and of course, it requires the other two branches of government to assert themselves as well to check presidential power, which we haven't seen too much of that over the course of this past administration. Douglas Brinkley, It's always great to have you on. Thank you for bringing us your expertise. We appreciate it. We're back tomorrow with more Meet the Press, but there's more news ahead right now on NBC News Now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.